And come on. And hello, folks on YouTube. Northstar here. Welcome to another episode of my Singularity Let's Play. I hope you are doing well. Viewers, taking care of each other and being kind to yourselves. If this is new to my channel, welcome. Returning folks, welcome back. New folks, check out my various series, all organized into playlists, including this one, though. This, I wouldn't say has the most that changes. It's quicker that I ever reached an advanced stage of before I started streaming. Which, you know, it's relaxing. Some people like this, find it amusing. So if there's an audience for it, I'll stream it even if it bores me. Because the point of my channel is two things. One, it's to earn some money to supplement SSI, which hopefully will get approved and disabled following COVID. I waited too long to apply for Social Security, and that because the process is ridiculously intimidating, because they constantly find bullshit excuses to deny legitimate applications like mine. And honestly, I think part of the reason they do this is so that people with legitimate disability will defer or not bother applying in the first place. I mean, desperation would have driven me, and it gets eventually because I am too sick to work. Long COVID is a terrible disease. It's not the same for everyone. You might even know someone with disease, but like, well, they can work. Yeah, because it's not always equally severe. But the severe cases, I'm constantly struggling with brain fog, which affects my memory and ability to focus. But I'm actually getting a headache and having trouble thinking right this second. Comes and goes. I don't think I reached my energy limit for the day, though maybe. And yeah, I kind of have an energy limit of about 3 hours of activity a day, sometimes 4. If I push myself beyond my energy, I can get really bad post-exertion malaise the next day, which greatly reduces my energy that day. If I keep pushing, the post-exertion malaise just stacks. It gets worse and worse and worse each day. It's not like it's just at a constant level. So I can't just push through it because it will become catastrophically tired to the point where I can't get out of bed for a day in the worst case, or just enough to use the restroom and eat. I've had days like that on occasion, like after I really overexert myself climbing a mountain after day after my brother's wedding. Post-exertion malaise doesn't usually hit the day of, but the next day, although it started to really cramp up that day. But yeah, for about a month, I had severe post-exertion malaise after that, which was the final proof to me that no, I couldn't just power through it, which I wish it was possible, but it's not. It's not a matter of weakness, and it's certainly not a fucking matter of depression. I got long COVID just as things were starting to open back up. The pandemic was coming to an end. I had every reason to be optimistic. I was coming to the end of a special master's dual degree program. I'd gotten straight A's in it, was going to become a physician, probably a surgeon. Everything was up. I was having success with dating finally. Even if the last person I dated at that point had been a bit nuts. It's the pandemic. It made things a little harder, but honestly, I had a tendency to track some of the crazies on occasion. But well, not really so much as there was only I didn't have much luck with dating, but yeah, things were still looking up overall in most things. And I was looking forward to life going back to normal, and then boom, COVID. My roommate returned from a business trip, infected with it just before the vaccine was available in my state for healthy individuals. I think some states might have already had it, and definitely sick individuals who had vulnerabilities did, which I probably should have realized. I might have, not sure if it would have officially qualified, but that I was a vulnerable individual, and I did have a way I could skip the line through my research. I should have done it because I had multiple pre-existing conditions. But I got the vaccine early, skipping the line. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten long COVID. Roommate ignored my demand to turn around and get a hotel when he returned from business trip after and being home for about an hour, told me he lost his sense of smell. He was probably infected with COVID. If he had, based on how long it took for me to expose the virus, given there was an incubation period and such, it was probably 5 to 7 days that I quarantined with them before I got exposed. So I was being really careful. And if he had turned around and gotten a hotel, I definitely wouldn't have gotten long COVID. I wouldn't have gotten COVID. Long COVID, I'd be a physician now, and I wouldn't even be in the United States because I was going to be applying to foreign medical schools and trying to get the hell out of the country. Probably would have started a year after I got long COVID in 2021. Probably would have done a gap year to have all the final semester grades in before med schools had to decide whether to do interviews. I was applying that cycle and may have gone to a U.S. med school. I had not, since the pandemic caused a hiccup with my research project. I would have wanted to be sure that I was going to finish the research requirement for the degrees, even though I would have been done with the classes. Yeah, I've had not great fortune with my research. My first master's, my first lab ran out of money and shut down because the professor didn't get grants they applied to, and then person in charge of my second project was a complete asshole, and because he kept not approving experiments are necessary to finish out the research and delayed things, I ended up having to take an extra year that was just research. I was already done with classes. And I would have had to, so a 2-year master's became 3. It would have probably been the same with special masters, but because the pandemic caused delays and issues with the research, which can't possibly be, seen as like I didn't cause the pandemic. So sure, I studied viruses in my first master's, but I didn't develop the virus or some nonsense. I should upgrade the heart there. Some people might try and specifics. While the delay of the beginning of the project can't possibly be blamed on me. It was the pandemic when it did finally start. Many, many, many months later, it was supposed to. The research eventually break down because the professor was terrible at communicating. I keep calling him professor because I'm thinking grad school. He's actually a physician, surgeon, and he didn't have a professorial appointment. So sorry, the surgeon was terrible at communicating by email. Great in person. I got the chance to, ironically, see him in surgery and shadow that, which I guess higher cleanliness requirements, but the hospital wouldn't allow people to come into the office for research, so I didn't get to see him around there. And when he was doing surgery, he wasn't communicating about the research. The research actually related to his surgery. So, he was just laser focused on the surgery he was doing. So I didn't see him that often in surgery. So eventually, because he wasn't getting answers that he didn't even ask for by email, he got annoyed. But not for the pandemic. I could have communicated in person. He was good at communicating in person, and things would have gone great. And if the research project hadn't been delayed in onset at the beginning by 4 or 5 months, even if it did break down, I would have been able to do a different project and graduate in just 2 years. So the pandemic would have either way added a year to, not necessarily a year. There was discussion with the program head, and they thought I could probably just do a library thesis because I'd already gotten the practical laboratory experience requirement. So actually, I could have just done a library thesis over the summer and probably still graduate then in the summer instead of another year. But it wouldn't have been in time anyways for the med schools was one at the time, so I might have needed to do it again. And since that cycle hadn't applied to foreign med schools, but was going to get a passport anyways, I was planning on starting 2022 in a foreign med school. That was what I figured would happen, and I had the straight A's for it. So even if I wasn't the best researcher, it wasn't like I was applying to MD PhDs. I was applying to MDs, and I was an excellent student and had shown excellent clinical instincts as an EMT, which you don't treat or diagnose conditions, but you do cue into what might be going on. I'd save lives through my excellent instincts, catching things others wouldn't. And a couple supervisors are willing to write very nice recommendations for me from that. And so even though there was a manager at the company who hated my workouts, the supervisors, the people who actually worked with me, had very nice things to say. And yeah, my program head was fully confident I would get into Australian or Irish med school if I applied. So I would have been out of the country now 3 years, which would have been exciting for me. I was looking forward to that, as well as things returning normal to pandemic. But no, my life was derailed. My dreams were crushed by long COVID. And I was an incredibly hard worker. It's just like the physicians who developed long COVID had to stop working. Do you think physicians are lazy? Do you think someone's on the verge of becoming a physician? So you can't say, well, I was getting burnt out with that or something. I was on the verge of achieving my dreams. That I would just suddenly, no. Do you think that? Go, knock yourself up. As in sexual metaphor, but I'm not going to use the word that YouTube might hate. And now I'm on food stamps, disabled COVID. The food stamps aren't paying out in November. Don't know exactly where I'd have to check the buffer when this posts, but it's November. Food stamps aren't paying out. Still waiting to hear back on Social Security. SSI got cheated out of SSDI, which is different. SSDI has this work credit requirement. SSI is just assets and are you disabled. It looks like I'm going to get approved for disability in SSI, but SSDI I got cheated out of because of all of these ridiculous rules that poke the SSRDI system full of holes with regards to work credits, including rounding down with work credits. So you can have 3.9 work credits 2 years in a row that don't add up to, you then only have 6 instead of, should be at least 7. So they round down, they don't carry over from year to year. The work credits are capped for a year, so if you're working 2 jobs at once, as I was, you can't earn more a certain amount. If you're the period doesn't look at anything before 21, but it starts at 21 if you're disabled. Say 25, they look at the years 21 to 25. The number of years they look at keeps increasing until you're 31. So it's basically everything after 21 until you reach 31. Then if you get older than 31, it starts looking at later years than 21. But I was disabled at 31, so that included my senior year of college when I was 21, as well as my grad school years. With 5 of those 10 years being grad school, 1 of those 10 years being undergrad. And even though I worked while I was in grad school, work for the university while in grad school does not contribute SSDI work credits, at least while you're more than a half-time student. There was a semester where I took leave of absence after I didn't get another TA ship after the first semester, my first master's, and because the TA supervisor was horribly exploiting my contract and didn't like that I objected to them basically cheating me, doing things like saying, well, technically the contract goes to December and there's all these breaks, and so we'll just shovel the hours over and ask you to work more hours. No, it's an average number of hours. We can ask you to work 3 times that many number of hours in a week as long as it averages out. And we give you some weeks where we don't ask you to do anything when there's very little work, and we'll just have the professor do it. In the past, they'd had 2 TAs for this class, and the amount of grading had been half as much. They doubled the workload while cutting in half the workforce. So I was working 4 times as hard as TAs did in the past. Like in the past, TAs didn't have problems. In the past, there were 2 of them. And in the past, actually, they were 50% appointments instead of 25. So in the past, they were expecting to work twice as much. There were 2 of them, and the workload was half as much. You're working me 8 times as hard as the TAs in the past. Of course, they didn't have a problem. Or at least 4 times as hard while paying me like I'm doing half as much work. That's actually accurate. Wasn't being worked 8 times as hard. It was being worked 4 times as hard, but paid half as much. And they used to have 2 people doing it, as I said, which also there's synergies. You can work 2 people more than twice as hard because one person might be better at this, one person might be better than that. When it comes to holding office hours, they can swap off to work around each other's schedules. I was doing RTC at the time, so my schedule wasn't nearly as flexible. If I had another TA, I could have okay, you do office hours this week because RTC is very hard. That would have helped me. Yeah, but they were cost-cutting at the university, and I got screwed. It was partly because of the 2008 crash, all sorts of reasons, including, downward pressure on tuition at the time. And yeah, so I didn't get TA-ship again the next semester because the TA supervisor didn't like that I objected to them how they were horribly abusing my TA contract. And they actually suffered serious lashback because they were doing this across the university from the TAs. It was something that happened. I'm not going to mention what. It's too specific the university I went at, but there was serious lashback that would identify where I went to grad school. I don't need random internet stalkers or fascists who want to make death threats knowing where I went to grad school. Bottom line is, though, that I took a leave of absence but continued to do research in that lab that ran out mine shut down that was supposed to be towards my degree. So I was working on thesis work advanced towards my degree. I didn't really need the classes anyways. I had done so much in undergrad that I actually had several graduate level courseworks, graduate student only courses that I had to get a special exception to take. My overall knowledge level was much higher than usual for an entering grad student, so I was fine with like a semester less classes in order and just focus my research, and got paid a little bit, not much, but hourly, some amount, and actually earned SSDI work credits for that semester because even though I was still a grad student, I was not enrolled full time that semester or any classes that semester, actually on leave of absence, and working here, so you got work credits that semester, but not any of the semester, not semester doing TA work, not semester doing another job for the university. So the 3 jobs they worked at the university, I only got paid, I only got work credits for 1. So yeah, anyways, so SSI, food stamps is being screwed with and cut, and Medicaid, which is being cut, which means doctors would be even less willing to provide good health care under that. I really need this channel to get to where I can monetize, get sponsors, get ad money, and supplement Social Security so I can survive and not be horrendously miserable living in literally extreme poverty. Even by some of the official definitions, extreme poverty. No, extreme poverty is less than $2 a day. Maybe not extreme, but well, that's the UN definition. That's for globally. In the U.S., no, I don't think it's there, but yeah, living in very harsh poverty. In either way, not my fault I got disabled, and the system is bullshit. And some of these rules were added by Bill Clinton in the 90s. It was intentional to poke Social Security, disability insurance full of holes, so that full of even more holes already existed, so that fewer people qualify, so there'd be less demand to raise the contribution limit for payroll tax, because the very rich, they pay only like on the first, I think, like $4 million their income payroll tax, and they don't pay any more after that. Republicans constantly talk about cutting Social Security, even though it doesn't come out of the general budget. It's handled, payroll tax and Social Security is handled completely separately. But really, they just don't want the payroll tax contribution limit going up, because then their billionaire donors would have to pay more taxes than their multimillionaire donors, and they would have to pay their select members of essentially the labor aristocracy, very high paid engineers and stuff, more to make up for it as well. They'd rather screw over poor people. And yeah, Newt Gingrich, who was the one who worked with Bill Clinton, who requested this in exchange for tax hikes that Bill Clinton wanted. And Bill Clinton was willing to make this deal. Real piece of work. Terrible human being, Newt Gingrich. So reason number 1 is money, including that the fact that if I can get enough money from YouTube, I might be able to get a self-employment visa for some countries. Many countries don't do the self-employment visas knowingly from internet work. You can't move on that, but there are some, if I remember correctly, I checked, Norway does. So if I could consistently, for a long enough period of time, make enough money from YouTube, I could leave the US for Norway, which I'm trying to get out of the country because I see the country slide into fascism. I don't know how long I have till the system is not even a semblance democracy, and they're, freaking death squads coming for political opponents of the regime, including myself. Like, I'll be targeted for sure. So, I mean, I'm a Marxist democratic socialist. I've done political organizing work before for the Democrats. I am enrolled in socialist parties. I am outspokenly a critic of Trump and the fascists here on YouTube. I have posted stuff on social media, my real name, like Facebook. I will be targeted eventually. So, and while it's possible, countries might offer U.S. Citizens asylum status refugee if they're willing to go. If things get bad enough here, it's unlikely. Countries are afraid of the U.S. and afraid of retaliation if they do that. So they probably won't. So, yeah, self-employment visa thing. If I could get my channel to where enough to be considered legally able to support myself off that, I'd still eventually try and become a citizen. And then if something happened, like my YouTube channel was someday deleted, even though I was not living in the U.S. anymore, because YouTube servers, I think, are based in the U.S. Political censorship, Trump trying to censor even his overseas opponents that way. Something like that happened. And I hopefully would have become a citizen, have some savings, or be close to citizenship. And if I become a citizen, say in Norway, then hopefully, if that happened, I would still be able to go back to whatever disability benefits they have. Have to survive, and if there's ever survive till hopefully there's a cure for long COVID, then maybe I can really have a real career. Doubt YouTube will ever pay enough to be anything other than me living in poverty. It'd be nice to be one of those famous YouTubers, $2 million a year. So first thing is economic reasons. Second thing is I see fascism taking power all over the world. Far-right movements taking power all over the world. Authoritarian movements. From Viktor Orban in Hungary to Trump in America. By the way, there's a book, Strongmen, that talks about these things, although it also, of course, has to throw Muammar Gaddafi in with all these far-right people as if he's cut from the same cloth at all. He's not. Typical, we have to attack China, too. We have to attack the opponents of the U.S. Oh, yes, we attack China for supposed to being, like, horrible, but we don't, for being a one-party state, but we don't attack Japan for being a one-party state. It's ridiculous. It's just hypocrisy and imperialist propaganda, and authors feeling they need to make a nod to imperialist propaganda to not get censored or suppressed by the government. Japan is just as authoritarian as China, but we sit there and say it isn't, even though they're a one-party state that no other parties can really get any foothold. It's oligarchical rule, and there's organized crime that works with the government, which is part of why that guy was assassinated a while back, because of his organized crime connections. I don't think the media accurately reported on that, but like the mainstream media, there was some stuff that talked more about this. So, I mean, they mentioned, I think in passing, his organized crime connections, but that was the real reason he was killed. But leader of Japan was assassinated. Anyways, yeah, the government there works with organized crime. It's a one-party state. It's just as authoritarian as China. There's all sorts of political censorship of the media. It's just because they're a U.S. ally, they don't get attacked as such. And even people who are now, that book actually calls the U.S., says it's sliding into authoritarianism, but it doesn't attack any of America's allies still. Because the mindset of we must defend America and its allies is still too hard to get out of for these people. It was hard enough for them to admit that Trump is taking America fascist, and honestly, these are probably like the shit Democrats who think things will be okay if we just get rid of Trump, who wrote that book. I have very little respect for these shills for imperialism. But anyways, it's still an interesting book and worth reading. Just read it with a grain of sand. Heck, I'm sure more right-wing people read it with a grain of sand for other reasons. But I would agree, read this book with a grain of sand, but it's still a worthwhile read. For other reasons, because they may be more friendly towards Trump or whatever. But I see fascist movements taking power over the world. And I want to push back against that on YouTube if I can get big enough that my audience is not insignificant like it is now. I mean, you folks matter. You're not insignificant. Those who are listening to me, but there's so few of you. There need to be more. will allow me to push back. I mean, there's some really huge YouTubers who have substantial political sway. If I got to be anywhere close to that, or even probably still a small timer, but bigger than this, then I could push back against the rise of fascism in the world and thus make the world a little bit better place. And I've always strongly believed to make the world a better place, giving back however I can. And this is the way I can give back. So, entertainment, greater economic self-sufficiency, disability by supplementing disability benefits. Maybe in the point where I can get out of the US. My YouTube channel gets truly enormous, though. I may be screwed. May disappear into some Trump death camp. Or, well, probably not Trump. Probably, I don't think things will get that bad in Trump's lifetime, but maybe when Trump dies of old age, some other GOP fascist, maybe some JD Vance run death camp, you know, because things are just going to keep getting worse and political opponents are going to be disappeared and tortured and killed eventually. Might not happen for 40 years, but like that stage, like I'm sure fascists will take over by 20, but getting to that level might take even longer. But I'll hopefully still be alive in 40 years. Old man, but I don't want to be murdered as an old man for my political views, so I want to get out of the country. And I want to push back against the fascists however I can. I'm screwed anyways. There's, yeah, a certain danger in speaking out to make myself even more screwed, but they're coming for me. They're coming for me either way. It's just a matter of whether they come for me a little earlier because I've been pushing back harder, or a little later because I'm lower on the list, so to speak. Political opponents of the regime. Yep. I'm sure some of you think I'm being ridiculous. Unfortunately, I've studied history a great deal. My knowledge of history says I'm not being. I doubt those who think I'm ridiculous. I've spent the hundreds, in fact, I think thousands of hours of their free time studying history and studying everything they can about historical events and patterns, because I'm a pattern person. I don't give that much about. I don't give a darn about the year that this famous figure was born. When I study history, I look for patterns. I look for how events are connected, and that kind of thinking, and how it reflects in the modern world and what it can teach us about today. That kind of thinking whips me to say we're definitely head for fascism in the US, and it will happen within my lifetime, for sure. And unless I die of a heart attack due to long COVID real early, it could happen next year, and then I wouldn't live to see it. But given a normal lifespan, it's happening in my lifespan. Alright, well, probably cut this video here. Maybe I'll do a real politics video, I guess. It's always a good one when I'm feeling edgy and feisty. A bit to do. Just did a Civ 4 Let's Play. Check that out. Another episode in that. Yeah, let me take a moment to show for a few of my other series. I have a Hearts of Iron 4 series, several of them. They're all in playlists. Different campaigns separate. Probably eventually do another one. There's some new DLC coming out. I might wait for that to come out. From bug fixes, I might wait for it to go on a deep sale. Who knows? But it could be interesting to see how much interest there is in that DLC. Let me know in the comments if you'd really like to see that. But I may wait because money's very tight. But if buying that gives my channel a big enough boost, if I get SSI approved, it might be worth it. It's also something I'm actually a little bit excited about, which I don't get excited about many things because, well, my life sucks. There's not many things to look forward to. So, the DLC, if I can find a reasonable deal, probably not off Steam, but there's these other sites that Paradox put their games on for deeper sales sometimes. They usually have to wait a bit. If you want it right away, you have to get on Steam usually. Sometimes there's also pre-order discounts, but they're usually smaller than ones you can get by being more patient. Usually, not always. Actually, no. I should keep doing the oxygenate blood here. Hearthstone 4, Stellaris. Check that out. I've got a buffer all the way to early 2027 on Stellaris, my current campaign, and I'll be doing more. It's not done, not nearly done. There's the Infernals and the Psionics DLC just came out in the Infernals, and I bought the season pass before money became quite so tight because I've been living with that abusive family member, so at least I wasn't paying much rent. I actually was paying a little, and so a little more money for games budget to try and invest in my YouTube channel in the hope that stuff like that would help it to grow. So anyway, so I will. So it's already paid for. Is the point? I will be able to do the Infernals DLC maybe if it's compatible with that save. If not, just Sonics. If that's not compatible with the last one before, I'll be returning to that. I've been waiting for fixes. There's always bugs introduced for the Sonics one, maybe the Infernals, and I'll go back and see if those break the save, and if they, I think the Infernals probably will. So probably I'll wait for the last Sonics one. Wait till they release Infernals and then go to the last beta before it of the Sonics, because then I'll know it'll be on a stable version. See if that works. If it's save breaking, go the last one before Sonics DLC, which will definitely work. And I'll be returning to that series. So Stellaris, Hearthstone 4, Civilization 4, Mount & Blade Warband. I do. I'll be returning that. Potion Craft, I did a few of those. Reasonably popular. I might return to. I didn't love that game in terms of it running out of late game content. I mentioned Wildermyth. It's a very charming game. I know I play it especially slowly, but the only reason I haven't done more of those is because their viewership has been really low. But I'm really itching to go do some more of those. So go check that series out. I have a couple playlists, 2 or 3 playlists, few campaigns, I think 3 campaigns and 2 playlists, if I'm right, but one of them is only the very end of a campaign. So 2.5 campaigns and 2 playlists. Check out my Wildermyth series, Pop-Up Dungeon, Real Politics, Interstellar Transport Company. I keep talking about returning that, especially when I do the Beyond exploration here, or Stars. They both make me think of space. It's a okay logistics game. I tried to see if I could find a deal on SimCity Societies, but it's still way too expensive. EA, if I somehow catch wind of this, do a huge deal. That game is at 9 years old or 10 years old at this point. Do like a 90% off deal and you'll get more people buying it. You'll make some money that you wouldn't have made otherwise. It's not a very good game. It's poorly rated, so it's not this huge asset. There's no reason to hold on to it. When, like, we must never do a deal that's less than, I think, $5 is the all-time low. That game kind of sucks, but it has a certain amusing charm. Sell it for $3. Sell it for $2. You'll get more purchases on sites like Dream Gaming or something if you don't do it on your own story. Of course, they won't do that. Darkest Dungeon, I may do a series of eventually. Oh, Knights of Pen and Paper +1. I've had a long running campaign of that. It's a very small game, so it was easy to port around in USBs. I may start a series on that campaign, eventually finish it, and maybe do a new one. I think when you win the campaign, you can go back. I don't think I've won it yet. And if you start a new campaign, I forget, there's some sort of continuity. It could be interesting to finish that campaign and then start being. It takes a very long time, so probably be able to do those 2 campaigns. It takes a very long time to win that. I think I haven't even won it yet. Slow game. It's kind of charming. I think technically the studio was bought by Paradox, so it's technically a Paradox game, but it wasn't really made by them. It's definitely not like normal Paradox games. But there's like the Paradox logo on the launcher or something. I forget. Seen it in there. It's definitely owned by Paradox now. I may do a Victoria 2, not 3, 2, an older one. Let's Play series, and definitely a Crusader Kings 2 at some point. But I don't have those yet. I have some old Kerbal Space Program videos, but the real old audio sucks. But I'll probably be doing a new series of that eventually. Maybe with KSP Interstellar Extend, which once upon a time I actually helped develop. I was kind of one of the people who helped found what was it, Extended Continued, or whatever that it was originally called. It's basically, I mean, no, Extended is, yeah. KSP Interstellar was this guy, and he kind of abandoned the mod, and this guy picked up the reins, and I helped pick back up the reins of it, and I was very active in development for a while. I was basically one of the co-founders of the mod, and then I think it was attributed as such for a while, and then the guy eventually dropped me, just put me a contributor, because there were so many people who were contributing later, and I stopped doing nearly as much. But anyways, I was very active in the early development of that, in moving the mod towards a very mathematical basis for things like the specific impulses, especially because realizing that the mod, as overpowered as it was, certain things were not as overpowered as they actually should be based on the real life numbers. Which of course, if you use real solar system, it's actually not nearly so overpowered. It was like the specific impulses of certain fuels with nuclear thermal engines should have been higher than they were, especially with some of the futuristic nuclear reactors that exist now, but they're not stable enough, like molten salt reactors. But they'll eventually be used for spacecraft propulsion. Anyways, but I ran a lot of the math with getting the right numbers for certain things and making the mod more scientifically accurate. And I think the mod's better for it because that legacy was continued into the present day. It's very much too overpowered for the base game, and I'll probably run it on real solar system 6.4x, which is not as big as full real solar system. It's the Kerbin system instead of real solar system, which is Earth and such. But it's a manageable size. It doesn't take as long to reach orbit as the full scale. It's still a little easier than full scale real solar system, which is just too hard. It's too stressful. So I'll probably go back to 6.4x at some point. In fact, I was actually the first player to ever build a space plane for that, although I didn't stream it to YouTube or anything. I didn't post the forum to talk to someone else did. But based on when they said they'd just done it that week, and I'd done it 2 months earlier and had saved some screenshots and been working towards getting it posted. So someone else posted the forums first, but I was the second person to post the forums, the first person to ever build a working space plane using Interstellar Extend stuff, though. I don't remember the other person. No, the other person did too, I'm pretty sure. It's hard to build a working spaceplane in Unreal Solar System 6.4x, even with Interstellar Extend. Spaceplanes are very hard, and the aerodynamics aren't quite right in that game. Shoot, 38 minutes, okay. What other games? I feel like there's one other I really should mention. Oh, Dwarf Fortress. That's a very popular series. I guess it doesn't hurt to have more viewers, especially because I'm gonna probably have to go do more videos, even if I feel a little burnt out about it, because it's so popular I can't afford to not do it. It's one of my most popular series ever. In fact, for a while it was my most popular. I think some other series recently surpassed it. Well, anyways, I wish you viewers all the best. Take care of each other. Be kind yourselves. May you always find a guiding star to lead home. Till next time, it's Northstar. Do. Best luck to you all.